Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another segment of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest. But first, as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, please don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. You should be using them too. So take a listen to our shout outs, then listen to our segment, and then go and visit these sponsors if you're not already using them. You're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper, the official social media graphic solution for the podcast. You should go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to show you how you can create world-class marketing content to promote your teams and celebrate your athletes. Gipper's used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com to get started today. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers you more. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us, and it's something you're going to use every single day. How about scheduling? Student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Communicating with coaches, with kids, with parents, with your state association, uploading schedules and rosters, digital forms, you name it. Home Campus is going to help you do it better and faster. And all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Look at their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to tell your school's unique story, highlight your best and brightest, okay, and share with the community all the great things that are happening at your school. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. You're going to be glad you went there. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids and connect with the community at the highest level. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then gotten little, if any, return on investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraising platform out there. We used it in our school with great success. Our parents loved it. Our coaches loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out all of their great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be glad you did. And finally, we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic Surveys is about connections. They're going to connect you with your stakeholders, your parents, your kids, your coaches. You already get feedback, but it's probably from the people who want to gripe, the group that wants to complain all the time. And that's a very small percentage. Athletic Surveys will connect you with that group, but they're also going to connect you with the 98% that supports your program, support what you're trying to do. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent, frustrated student athlete, maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. I know I say this every week, but we've got a really cool guest today. Our guest is Megan Henry. Now, she's not an athletic director, but wait till you hear this background. She was a college athlete. She was an international athlete. She's a member of Team USA for bobsled and skeleton for over 10 years. She's a three-time world champion. She holds numerous American records. She's also, by the way, a U.S. Army intelligence officer. We're going to hear about that. And she is currently the head of mental strength for a company called POIZ, P-O-I-Z. We're definitely going to hear more about that. But Megan Henry, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that intro.
Oh, well, I didn't do you justice. Your record is just so very impressive. Um, let's go ahead and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own high school and college years. And then we're going to hear about all that other stuff later. But what's the Megan Henry origin story?
The origin story. So I was born and raised in Connecticut in a really small town, Roxbury. There's like 2,000 people that live there, very rural, but 2.5 hours from New York City. And I grew up on a dirt road, believe it or not. And I was a really, really shy kid. And I grew up, however, my dad was very successful athlete as well. And so he lived vicariously through my brother and I, pushing us into sports at a young age, which I'm very grateful that he did, because I wouldn't be who I am today without that. And just you learn so much from sports. And despite being a really shy, very introverted kid, I learned a lot. I developed a lot of skills that carried over to so many other things in life. And just being able to, even just stand up for myself, and that resilience and persistence, it gave me a lot of drive. And I found uh, a lot of like satisfaction from being somewhat of an underdog. So I was born 2 months premature. And so I was always kind of like the smaller runt kid, shy again. And but I was very blessed with athletic talent and a very, very strong work ethic. And like I said, it gave me a lot of pride and satisfaction to be this underestimated underdog that was quite small in stature, yet very strong, very athletic. And so my dad was a football player. I ended up going into, he also ran track. So I ended up going into track and field hockey as well. So field hockey was my first athletic love that I really committed very intensely to. I started playing in middle school and all the way through high school. I basically knew as a freshman that I want to play in college. I want to play at the Division I level. I'm going to do whatever I can to get to that level. And so, again, like sports just was such a huge foundation for me for all the things to follow, like including, I went to American University in Washington, D.C., and I played field hockey all 4 years there. And then I walked onto the track team because I just wasn't quite finished being an athlete yet. And then I was like, okay, well, I had always had an interest in joining the military. And so when I was coming up to graduation and looking for jobs and everything, a lot of the jobs I was interested in were federal jobs. And they were like, you need 3 to 5 years work experience and a master's degree. And I was like, I'm gonna join the Army and get my master's. And all of my sports background served me so well going into that.
Yeah, I want you to share, that military experience because it really, was a catalyst to things that came later. But going all the way back, in your bio, you write about, those backyard football games with your brothers and things like that. And I can see you in there, digging and clawing. Your high school experience, field hockey and I'm going to insult a bunch of people I know nationwide, but it's more of a, let's say, a New England or East Coast
Definitely.
sport. We don't see it a lot down here in Florida. There's pockets. Same thing. I grew up on the West Coast. It's not out there. What are some skills? What are some field hockey specific skills? Obviously, if you're fast, you're strong, and you have all that, it helps. What are some skills that are specific to field hockey?
I would say hand-eye coordination is in there. The positions are very similar to like a lacrosse or a soccer. And but being able to communicate effectively with your teammates is definitely a non-athletic skill. However, it's very much a leadership skill. And so I would say hand-eye coordination for sure, and being able to have like quick reaction and be able to adjust, because the play can go very back and forth, almost like, a basketball game, like you're on offense, then defense. It can change very quickly. So having that adaptability to be able to react and change and have like bounce back quickly, because it can be emotional, right? If you just got tackled and you lose the ball, you could totally lose it and just check out of the game. But if you're able to respond very quickly, then you can end up back on offense really quickly. So I think that like adaptability, quick reaction time, all of those things are certainly skills that a field hockey player needs.
Okay. I've got another field hockey question for you, and there's a reason for this. All right. Is it legal to play field hockey left-handed? Okay.
So I technically you could, you just have to use the flat side of your stick. So it's inconvenient to play it left-handed. I'm sure people do it, but for the most
Right.
part, they adjust and they all just switch to right hand.
Well, one of my favorite sports trivia questions is there's only two sports that we know of where it is literally against the rules to play left-handed. Listeners, I'm going to let you look those up on your own because I use that a lot when I'm at conferences. And some people will frequently say field hockey because apparently they don't make, left-handed sticks. It seems
They
like that's a
don't.
market that's just waiting for an entrepreneur. Megan, let's you and I go in. We'll
There
develop
we go.
left-handed field hockey sticks.
I think they make them as a novelty, but yeah, they're only just right-handed sticks.
All right. Let's talk about track because I was a football and track guy. Now you mentioned again, and we'll get to it, that your track background and your abilities in track allowed you to have success in a different sport. But how did all that come about? How did you become this powerful sprinter starter?
Again, I have to thank my father. He was super athletic, blessed me with athleticism. I was very much built for power and explosive stuff. I can run like longer distances. I had to in the Army. That's not my strength, I would say. I would say my strength is definitely in short, explosive, very powerful. That's where my natural strengths lie.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's some hard work that went into that too. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to go and take a break, but for our listeners, our guest today is Megan Henry, college athlete, U.S. Army intelligence officer, USA bobsled and skeleton record holder, and a whole lot more. Let's take that break, but we're coming back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our good friends at Gipper for their support of the podcast. Gipper is our official social media and graphics solution, and it can be your solution too for creating world-class marketing content to help showcase your teams and your athletes. Gipper is used and trusted by over 4,000 high school and college athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made easy. How easy? It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com, mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. It's digital ticketing that offers more. If you go to hometownticketing.com, their team will show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for your athletic events, but things like school plays and concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school gets assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. It's digital ticketing that offers more. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest today is Megan Henry. We're going to let her share her story. So, Megan, you had finished college. You mentioned you had always thought about maybe joining the military. Take us on that journey. What attracted you about the military experience, and what was your experience like?
So I always thought that representing the military was this honorable thing to do. I remember when I was in high school, they had a recruiter come to the high school, and my middle school and high school were actually connected. And so they obviously were there for high schoolers. And they had like a push-up contest going on. And so even though I was shy and introverted, I am also competitive. So I was like, I'm going to enter this push-up contest and I'm going to win. Well, you had to put your name down to enter the contest for obviously recruiting purposes. So one day, I'm probably 12 years old or something, a recruiter comes to the house, knocks on the door, and my dad answers the door, and he's like, hello, and they're asking for Megan, and he's like, are you sure? Like, she's 12 years old. And the recruiter, I give him a lot of credit. He came in and he talked to me and he told me all about the Army and what it had to offer, even though I was definitely not going to be anyone signing up for his quota, right? And that stuck with me for a long time, that this person came and like sat with me and answered all my questions, even though I was 12 years old. So when I do ROTC in college, how I you have
Hey, we had a little bit of an internet issue there, but we're back. So, Megan, you were saying that the Army recruiter, he showed up and he's probably a little bit surprised, but you said he stuck around. He was a pro, answered all your questions. What was going through your mind at that point?
I was really, I mean, I was super grateful, but also very inspired. And again, I thought I had looked up to people in the military. I thought it was an honorable thing to do. And that's something that stuck with me. So when I was searching for jobs and what was the next step for me, this was something that immediately came to mind. I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so I basically graduated from college in like late May and came home, talked to the recruiter, and I shipped for basic training by July. So I was like home, gone. And yeah, it was definitely a interesting process, a nerve-wracking process, because it's a big decision. It's a life decision that you're making. I was 21, 22 at the time. So but I was confident that it was going to be something that I would be able to get through and rise to the occasion. And I learned a lot about myself through that, through basic training and just being put in leadership positions immediately. I think I tried to stay under the radar because I was like, well, if you're standing out because you're being a loudmouth or being disrespectful, they are going to eyeball you. That was not me. I was definitely not going to be that person. However, I was like, it's just best if I just slide under the radar and make it all the way through. And that didn't last very long. They noticed that I was physically capable. I was excelling in terms of the physical stuff. So I was immediately put into like leadership roles and being in like a platoon leader and like all these things. And which was very, very stressful because you're in charge of 18 to 30-year-olds at like 100 of them, and everything they did, it was your responsibility. So I learned a lot about leadership, and rather than passing the blame, but by taking that ownership of, yes, they screwed up and that is my fault because I didn't communicate in a way that they understood, or I didn't communicate clearly enough, or I didn't set the standard or set the example. So I learned a lot at that time. I was, 22, 23 years old. And it has served me well elsewhere, and just to be a leader, of course, in sports down the road. I can tie into my skeleton career if you want at this point. So I was in the Army. I went through all my training. I purposefully joined the reserve because I wanted to get my master's degree at the same time, because remember, the federal agencies were like, you need your master's degree. So that was my plan. I was going to be in the reserve, commit fully to grad school. And in the meantime, right after I had finished my advanced individual training, which was in intelligence as an intelligence analyst, so I enlisted first. I was enlisted first. I was recruited to come try bobsled. And I was recruited by Alana Myers-Taylor, who is now a multiple Olympic medalist for the United States. And she had gone to Georgetown. She contacted my strength coach, was looking for athletes, and was like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit. You should go up and try bobsled in Lake Placid. So I go up there. And for the listeners, I'm 5'2". I'm 125 pounds soaking wet. And most bobsledders are at least 5'8". They're over 175 pounds. So I did not fit the description for a bobsledder. And so while I did well, they were like, yeah, maybe like you'd need to put on 30 to 50 pounds. I was like, okay, that's not realistic, right? That's a joke. So I don't think this is for me. And they're like, yeah, you're right. Okay, you should look into skeleton. So bobsled and skeleton are in the same federation. They're basically sister sports. So skeleton, however, is more similar to luge. So luge is feet first, skeleton is head first. So you push a sled and you jump on and you steer with your shoulders and your knees, and you experience up to 5 Gs of force going 84 plus miles an hour in some places on a mile sheet of ice. So then you're in a spandex suit and you've got a helmet on, and that's it. So being a competitive and somewhat of an adrenaline junkie, this seemed suitable for me. So I was very intrigued by it. And I quite literally jumped headfirst into skeleton. So it was great because it was an opportunity for me to continue my athletic career. I was very excited to have that opportunity because a lot of people don't have that after college. They play in high school, commit to go to college, and that's the end of their career. So this was very, very cool. And at the same time, I went to one of the tryouts and I had something that said like the Army on it. And my head coach at the time was like, do you know that the Army has the world-class athlete program? So if you show the potential to make an Olympic team, you can also represent the Army. You have to submit an application and get approved. However, you can represent the Army and be an athlete for the Army. And I was really fortunate that I was in and out of that program 3 times. So very, very cool that I had the opportunity to represent the United States in 2 uniforms.
There's just so many questions I want to ask. We're gonna have to bring you back for a
Part 2.
second interview. All right, the whole skeleton thing. I think most of us have seen, the Olympics, because that's usually, unfortunately, the only time you get to see bobsled or luge or skeleton. And the courses, they're intimidating even to watch on TV. And I can't even imagine what it's like in person. Is there a training course when you first get started, or do they just strap you on and you're going 100 miles an hour?
So when you first start, it's kind of like going to the bunny hill at the ski slope, right? They start you lower on the track and then they gradually move you up to the top. That is it though. Once you go from the top, there's nothing, there's no handicaps or anything. Like that's it. So it was very, very nerve-wracking at first, but once you're like on the sled, it's very exciting. The really challenging part about skeleton is obviously you can only do it in the winter months. And when you go to a track to compete, even if it's your first time there are only 3 days of practice before a race, and you get 2 training runs. So you get 6 minutes roughly before a race, and you're expected to be an expert on race day. And that, coming from very much, I did do track. However, I was very much involved in a team sport. This was a huge adjustment because everything is dependent on you, right? You cannot blame your performance on anyone except you. And that was actually I was very much like I was trying very hard. I was a perfectionist. I was trying to like steer absolutely perfectly. So I'm a recovering perfectionist. And that actually hindered my performance very much. And so that was like the impetus for me to get really involved in mental performance. That was when I realized that it's not my lack of physical talent, it is my mind that is hindering me. And like I'm expecting these outcomes, and yet I'm down here. So there's a gap. Why is that? The gap is me, it's my mind. So that's really when I started to get into sports psychology, mental strength, meditation, all of these things. And it completely changed the trajectory of my career. So that was the start of it. And so I'm still very much passionate about it today. It made such an impact on my career and the things that I was able to accomplish. You mentioned in my intro, I have numerous American records. I had
Right.
2 world records, and I was #1 in the US for many years. I came back from life-threatening blood clots. I was out for an entire year due to that, and was able to like essentially visualize my recovery and heal myself way quicker than was anticipated. I was out the entire season before the 2022 Olympic season because of COVID. The Army had travel restrictions. So the only thing that I was really able to do, I wasn't able to practice. I don't have a track in my backyard. I was visualizing breaking those track records. I broke them in our Olympic trials. So I learned a lot from skeleton.
Now, we're going to talk about the the mental performance, and I love the way the your title, head of mental strength. It's not mental illness or mental weakness, mental strength. I love that. Um, you mentioned the world records, okay, and world championship teams and things like that. Let's well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to the your first world championship, first world record, take us through that, because obviously that you're talking about in a very elite group.
Definitely. So, I had a very like slow trajectory to rise to #1 in the US. I was always like just on the cusp of making the World Cup team. And like I said, when I really started to dig into the mental side even more and let go of trying to control outcomes is when my performance really, really escalated. And so, when I made my first world championship team, my performance was lackluster at best. So, but in terms of making the world records, for example, the track records, that was very, very cool. It was a very surreal experience in that I had seen it so many times in my mind that when it happened, it was just kind of like matter of fact. Yet at the same time still didn't feel real. And I had just committed so intensely to visualizing the things that I want. And I'll tell you what, the when my again, I was saying I was on the cusp of making the World Cup team for a long time. So I was like fourth in the country for a long time. And the difference is that I wanted to be on the World Cup team, yet I didn't see myself as being at that level. So I was like, I want to make this. I hope I make this. I think I'm good enough. And then when I started adopting the self-talk that was like, I am the best in the United States. I am the fastest pusher in the United States. I am on the World Cup team. So I started to act as if at POIZ, we actually say champions are champions before they are champions. And so I had to adopt the mindset that I am this person. I am capable of doing these things. And that's when my results drastically shifted very, very quickly as well. And that's because your subconscious mind will not let you accomplish something that you do not believe is true. And that's true in sports, that's true in life, that's true in business, that's true financially, relationship wise, that is across the board. That is true. So that was like, again, the total switch in terms of how I saw change for myself. I had to see that change and essentially brainwash myself to be like, I am this person. I am capable. I am worthy. I'm deserving of these things. And having that positive self-talk, because all of us have that negative voice, that self-doubt that creeps in. And it's a matter of, can you talk to yourself more than you listen? Because that voice is going to be there. So can you be prepared with something? So can you be your own hype man? That when I was able to take on that role again, like controlling what I can control, that's when my performance totally shifted.
No, and we hear it so often, the importance of um, the the mental training or mental health, if you will, has on performance. And so here's at the highest level. Okay, just a great success story. We're going to hear more about that and what you're doing right now when we come back. Once again, for our listeners, our guest today is Megan Henry. She's in the reserves, but she's a U.S. Army intelligence officer. Also, oh, by the way, a world record holder, American champion in skeleton. So let's go and take that break, but we're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank our friends at Sideline Interactive for their support of the podcast. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their indoor score tables and scoreboards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we used it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com to get started. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us, and it's going to be a platform you use every single day. Things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Who doesn't do that every day? Communication with parents, with coaches, with your state association, uploading schedules and rosters, digital forms and signatures. Home Campus is going to make your job easier and you're going to be doing it faster. And all you have to do to get started is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Check out their interactive touchscreen, that's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to tell your school's unique story, highlight your best student athletes, and share all the great things that are happening in your school with your community. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Go there after the podcast. You're going to be glad you did. And we want to say thanks to our friends at Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids at the highest level and also better connect with our community. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. One more time, our guest is Megan Henry. She's a member of the US Bobsled and Skeleton team, a world champ, world record holder, and she is also the head of mental strength for a company called POIZ, P-O-I-Z. Megan, share with our listeners, what is POIZ? How did you get involved and why should they learn more?
Definitely. So POIZ, P-O-I-Z, it's an app designed to address the growing need in high school athletics, which we believe is mental strength. So you mentioned before the break, you mentioned mental health, and that's become a critical conversation across all aspects of life. And athletics is no exception. And athletes at all levels despite outward images of strength and confidence, they face a unique set of pressures, particularly student athletes at the high school and college level. The demands of balancing academics, training, competition, expectations of competition can be very, very overwhelming. And so athletes are actually 2 times more likely to experience anxiety compared to the general population. And so while that highlights the very real mental health challenges student athletes face, POIZ, this is where POIZ comes in. We see POIZ as a valuable tool for athletic directors and other team organizations. So it's an app that's designed to help student athletes build their mental strength and develop skills and tools geared specifically for sports performance. So it's different than a mental health app. We say it was built by athletes for athletes. And we've spent the last 4 years meticulously developing the content that is super sport specific. It is sport specific and position specific. And we understand the unique challenges faced and pressures faced by different athletes, whether it's mental focus for a golf athlete or pressure-packed environment that a basketball player or a football player may experience. POIZ essentially helps build that mental strength. So there's the difference between, like I said, mental health and mental strength. We see POIZ as like the front end solution. So if you're able to build up some of the strengths, such as like resiliency, having more flow states, emotional regulation, a positive mindset, self-discipline, self-awareness, increased focus, performance under pressure, all of those things hopefully prevent that from turning into something that is more mental health related. So an analogy that we were just talking about today actually was that POIZ is like, so for example, if an athlete were to just totally avoid doing strength and conditioning exercises and go into a competition scenario, they're much more likely to get injured. They're very injury prone that way. And the same is true for the mind. So if an athlete goes into a competition setting and they've done no mental strength to prepare for that, they're very likely to experience some sort of anxiety, self-doubt, all of these things that can end up turning into something more serious if left untouched. So the app is supposed to be this just in your pocket, a sports psychologist and mental coach in your pocket. Kids are always on their phone, so it's easily accessible. We all are on our phones, I should say. And so it's just sport-specific mental conditioning exercises. And our bread and butter is in visualization techniques, similar to the ones that I use. So I was actually coached by some of the others in POIZ. I was coached by Shane and Dave Austin, and then Chase Austin is also, so it's a family there. And so I was brought in to be head of mental strength. I had done another mental performance certification with them. And all of us are super, super passionate about this. We're really passionate about what we do and just bringing that education to the mental strength side of things. That's the next evolution in sports performance.
Now, again, we've talked about this. The research is very clear that, mental performance training enhances athlete performance. There is no question about it. You talked about the impact it had on your own performance as an athlete at the highest level. I'm sure there's a listener out there right now that is, let's say tech averse. They're just, they haven't had the experience. They don't know what's an app. Okay. Walk that AD, walk that coach through it, how it works, how they can get it, how they can get their coaches to get it, and ultimately, how can we get it in the hands of our kids?
So definitely. So if you want to check us out, if you are just a little bit tech savvy, and you can go to getpoiz.com. That's getpoiz.com. You can also reach out to me directly via email, which is Megan, Megan.Henry, Henry, @getpoise.com. And you can message me and ask us about our partner program. So we have a partner program. We know that athletic directors definitely struggle in terms of budget. So we offer a program at an affordable cost that gives athletes access to the premium version of our app, which is the sport specific, position specific content, as well as we're expanding our library to include some more educational stuff, as well as other strategies to manage performance anxiety, to again, stay focused under pressure, increase resiliency, all of those things that improve mental strength. Because by improving these skills, athletes can approach challenges with more control, more confidence. They're more adaptable to stressors. It ends up trickling over into their academic performance as well. And what we have seen is with use at least 1 to 3 times a week. Obviously, the more the better. If you just came to practice once to 3 times a week, it'd be a little less ideal than if you went 5 times a week. However, we have seen a difference in as little as 2 weeks in some of our data and some of our feedback from our high school athletes. And so again, it's an app that they would use on their phone, much like if you were to pick up your phone and listen to music. It is they're short, digestible audios. We'll be adding videos in the future. And it's something that is very convenient and can be incorporated into an athletic program. So coaches, like, we love when coaches go and check the app out and use it first, because then that creates the buy-in that helps the athletes want to use it. And some of our coaches will have their teams do it as a team. They'll listen to a pre-game visualization, and they do it all together as a team. And it provides that like cohesiveness. And we also set a group intentions before games. So right now, if you were to do like a pre-game visualization, the app asks you for your intentions for the game. And so an intention is a bit different than a goal, in that an intention is something that's within your control. So if you wanted to be present, you wanted to have fun, you wanted to hustle to the ball, you can do all of those things whether or not you win or lose. So that's why we focus on intentions versus outcome. We certainly encourage goals and having outcomes, because that's like the destination on your GPS. We need to know where we're going. But we really, really focus on those intentions, because it brings the focus back into you versus something that is external. So did that answer your question about what POIZ is? Hopefully I explained that well.
No, it's very good. And again, the website, listeners, I've been to the website. Very cool, very easy to navigate and get signed up. I'm gonna hit you with something on your website. A couple of I don't think they were links. They were just little text boxes. You talk about, or not you, POIZ talks about. Let's see if I can remember this right. Neuroplasticity and hypofrontality. But then right above that, you talk about getting into the flow. And I think that's something that would resonate with most of our listeners. Not that those other two terms aren't important. We've already heard about the effect, the world record breaking effect that you experienced with mental strength training. But ADs can be, kind of a cynical group. Can you share just one? And I know you have a ton, but can you share just one success story, if you will, for a high school athlete that has used the POIZ app and had that same type, maybe not a world record, but had the success that we hope they're going to have?
I have one high school athlete who started incorporating the pregame visualizations, and in general had better outcome performances for, this is a soccer athlete. As far as like measurable data, I don't have like, they started scoring, like they scored 10 goals in one game. I don't have that, but I had that anecdotal, as well as I was working with a cyclist who was incorporating the POIZ app and visualizations. She went from crashing and like in a competition, and was unable to enter a contest for 6 months. She just refused to compete for 6 months. Started incorporating the POIZ app and was able to not only enter but win all of her races within 1 week's time. Entered and won all of her races that she entered. And so these are definitely like extreme, like, yay, very good successes for POIZ. But we do have a lot of data, even at the professional level and the collegiate level, of teams that have incorporated it and seen a lot of success and a lot of benefits. And some of that, again, it's not, some is measurable and some is not. We have one of our professional athletes, baseball player, completely turned his season around and was, I think if he had maintained the same record, he would have been number one for batting average in the league at the time. So very, very cool results that speak to using it consistently. I will emphasize that part. It's not like I go to the gym and I do bicep curls one time and that's it. These athletes, I give them a lot of credit. They stuck with it even when it was like, okay, I'm not quite seeing results immediately. They trusted that delayed gratification, and yet still, I mean, even seeing a change in 1 to 2 weeks time is very, very impressive. And hats off to them for their commitment to the process, because it definitely, the results will come.
No, absolutely. And again, with anything, there's got to be some level of consistency, whether it's running or lifting or skeleton or whatever. Yeah, you got to do it. But I think you also, answer the question or the concern from a coach. Well, yeah, mental strength, it's important, but I just don't have the time. I got to get more reps on the football field or more at bats or whatever. The students are doing it on their own time, okay?
Mhm.
And it doesn't take a tremendous amount of time. So great, great stuff. Boy, we're definitely going to have to get you back on the podcast down the road, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with something we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you're not an athletic director, but as a college athlete, high school athlete, and as a a world record holding athlete, I think you know your way around the world. So we're going to take our final break. And when we come back, we're going to hear from our sponsor who sponsors the Athletic Director Toolbox. I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 tools in their toolbox. So let's hear that final shout out. When we come back, we're going to find out what Megan Henry, world record holder, is going to put into her new athletic director toolbox. We'll be right back. We want to thank our good friends at Snap Raise for their support of the podcast. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then got little, if any, return on your investment? Well, stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out all of their great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to thank our friends at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but usually it's from the complainers, the group that wants to gripe about everything. That's really only a small percentage of your stakeholders. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you. They'll connect you with that group. They're also going to connect you with the 98% of your parents, your coaches, your student athletes that support your program. And that support is a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of your players, your parents, and your coaches. Athletic Surveys, let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We have been visiting today with Megan Henry, college athlete, U.S. Army intelligence officer, And oh, by the way, a world record holder. She certainly knows her way around the world of athletics, no pun intended. But right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let her put three things in the toolbox. So, Megan, what three items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Okay, so number one, 1% of your day has to be dedicated to you. That's only 14 minutes of your day. And that is through meditation, journaling, those types of things that develop self-awareness, as well as organizing your day so that you set the tone for the day. The other thing I would say is PM and AM routines. I'm sure everybody says something about habits and organization and all of that. However, if you can bookend your day, PM being more important because it sets up your morning. So if you can have like consistent bedtimes, consistent wake up times, and know that's very difficult in the world of sports, but being as consistent as possible and being able to wind down with your PM routine and reflect on the day, as well as focus on 3 wins for your day. This is something that I actually use with my athletes as well, by bringing your attention to the things that are going well. For an athletic director, you've got parents, you've got people nagging at you left, right, and center, administrative things going on. So it's really important to focus on the wins. So first thing, 1% of your day dedicated to you. Second thing, PM and AM routines, PM routines, including celebrating the wins. Third thing would be creating a positive team culture. I was very, very fortunate in my athletic career to have in high school and college very incredible coaches. My college coach was Steve Jennings at American University. Unbelievable man, unbelievable, absolutely legendary. Set the team culture. It was a very positive yet very high standard environment. We all knew that we were supposed to be on time, that we held ourselves to a certain level. We had to do well in the classroom, and he never yelled. So I'm not saying that coaches can never yell or be stern, but he had just set the culture. It was so ingrained that we just knew it, and we just didn't want to cross him. Like, we didn't want to find out what happened if you showed up late. And then on the other side, on Team USA, I was part of a very, very toxic culture. That was one of the reasons actually why I decided to retire from competing, because it was so draining. It was so just pervasive, very, very, it was toxic. That's the word for it. It was such a toxic environment. And the unfortunate reality of that is that if you don't do something to set the tone from the top down and to be interacting with people who are on the quote unquote bottom, that will not change. So I think being involved and caring about your athletes and your staff, your coaches, is so, so important. It's so important to create that positive, that team environment. And that's something that you cannot fake. That it has to be real, it has to be genuine, because people sense that. They sense your energy. So I would encourage my new athletic director to set that positive, that loving, that family team-like environment from day one.
Well, I was just writing all those down, and we've been doing over 500 interviews, and I think you came up with two unique tools. We've never had them expressed that way before. I'm going to have to go back and check, but I know you're 1% of your day, the 14 minutes. I just love the idea and the way that you express that. That's definitely a unique tool. Thanks for sharing all of that.
I have
I,
another unique tool.
okay.
Another
um,
unique tool is to use POIZ to help your athletes improve their performance.
I was actually going to mention, as I was giving all of your accolades, I forgot to mention that Megan is the director of mental strength for POIZ, which you just mentioned. So, Megan, one more time, if one of our listeners wanted to find out more about POIZ or just add you to their network and pick your brain, what's the best way they can do that?
Sure, you can check us out at getpoise.com. That's getpoiz.com. You can email me, megan.henry@getpoise.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram if you're on there. I'm on most social media. I check Instagram the most. My nickname there is at the Savage Meglet. And the reason for that is Meglet is a small Megan, and I am small in stature, and I am also a savage. That was a nickname that was given to me in sports. So I just kept it. The Savage Meglet is me on Instagram. You can follow me and DM me there. I am also reachable on LinkedIn. If you are on LinkedIn, you can find me there too. And of course, by email too.
And I just saw that. I think it was today. So I'm part of the following group of Savage Meglet. I love it. Megan Henry, thanks again for sharing with our listeners today. All the best with POIZ and all of your other endeavors. Thank you, for your service, U.S. Army military officer. And we are definitely going to get you back on the podcast down the road.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, for our listeners, we want to say thanks to you for tuning in. And remember, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our podcasts to the Educational 80 Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, help share best practices. So come back next time for another great episode on the Educational 80 Podcast.